So, Ednie, that is your first podcast. What are your thoughts? How do you find it? Good experience, bad experience?
I didn't like most parts of it, just because you asked me these questions, like where would you want to have sex on a golf course, and there's no good answer to that.
It's a good answer.
What would be a good answer?
What's a better question?
I asked you a question and you're being a typical politician and deflecting.
There's no rules about who can ask questions and who can't. Or is
Burnley
there?
Golf Course, Kopalua Golf Course.
I asked for your thoughts on the
Cooper
podcast.
Beach.
I didn't answer. I didn't ask you to finally
You're just
answer
setting
the
me up-
question.
Setting me up to fail. You know, I'm trying to use this as a launching off pad for my career.
What are you fucking? What are you? Fucking Elon Musk?
I don't know. Just
So, what are your thoughts? What were your thoughts if you were going to do the podcast again? What would you be looking for?
more scripted stuff.
Fucking
'Cause
ungrateful
then at least
cunt.
you know it's not going to just be completely dead air bomb. But what I was thinking was we could set up a camera, because I noticed that if we're going to be like Joe Rogan
a porn shoot.
or, you know, Joey Diaz podcast or, you know, some big podcast, we should have cameras.
What if that's the thing is, like, people always telling me, like, you got to differentiate your podcast. What if it was the Pants Off podcast? And where you sit there and the content is stellar, it's great, it's A grade, it's pure Colombian quality. But we also just have our big fucking dicks out. I think the people of YouTube or RedTube, Xvideos,
Yeah.
I think the thing about Xvideos and RedTube is that there's a lot of porn.
And if
People
we're
don't understand it's really just another video platform, much like a YouTube.
There's
So
no
it's all about
rules.
standing out in the space. What are your
That's
thoughts?
True. That's true. I mean, a lot of people have done that, but it's all sexual related, like all that, like
It's all dirty sex stuff.
mutant, you know, tentacles.
Yeah, I mean, there's no need to bring calamari into it. Calamari stay in the fish and chip shop. I love calamari, by the way. But when I've seen it go into some sort of Korean girl's vagina,
How could we actually differentiate this podcast, though, considering that it's just audio? You know, what are you?
sorry, I'm still thinking about the calamari.
Because there's really nowhere you can go, or so it would seem. You know,
Very
every
true.
great idea
He's on a roll here.
was born out of some sort of problem, or, you know, where there seemed to be no answer, and then at the end of the episode they find an answer and you work it out.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? So,
No.
well,
What do you mean? Like how? Like a
Like
a quiz? No, like that show where they figure shit.
yeah, no, like one of those shows,
Like the
Burn Notice or whatever.
You need a new show, man.
Get into
No,
it.
I mean like
Really sticky- no.
Mythbusters.
No, I'll finish my point. Where they there's like 10 guys
People don't
around
know.
them. so the
That's all the story of any good boss does, cutting off the guest.
so yeah,
Yeah,
the
no,
basic theme of the show
okay.
is the theme of the show is that there's three people, and one of them is he's been burnt from the it's called burn. They're in Miami, and because he's a burnt spy, he needs to get money. So all these people come to him with all their problems.
I'm in Miami, bitch.
Shut up. And so he finds these, you know, dodgy characters, and they need help or whatever.
Dodgy
And
characters.
he ends up having, you know, 5 or 10 people surrounded, and then he will come up with a solution. And that's the situation I submit that we are in, where we need to find new material for this podcast, or a new way to distribute it that's quirky and interesting, and differentiates us. But we can't think of anything. And so this is the moment where we are Mike Weston in Burn Notice, and we need to come up with a plan where we do some crazy thing. So yeah.
Oh my
so
God.
So that's why I'm saying, like, what could that be?
Oh, I think we found our material. Oh God, what could that be? I don't know. Why don't you just tell us more about the show so we can steal the basic template?
Yeah, I could give you a play-by-play.
Don't.
But yeah, it would go for basically the same length as the actual show. But
That's
so we
that's
need
a good wrap up. I think that is. Look, if you're going to be on the podcast again, you just need to bring the funny. That's all I require of you. The cornerstone of any good podcast is coming out with engaging material that's funny and interesting.
Okay,
bring
bring
the funny.
Doctor Podcast.
That's Professor the Podcast.
Easier said than done, though. That's the issue, and that's why we need differentiation. That should be the title of this podcast. Is are we going to get a camera? Are we going to?
I'll just call it the fucking Burn Notice Podcast.
That could be a bit. That could be a little thing where I watched
it is a bit. We just did it.
Yeah, no, I watched an episode of Burn Notice and I set up a situation that he's in, and then I ask you how to get out of it, and then you come back with me with an answer, and I tell you what actually really happened.
I ask the questions on this podcast.
Yeah, but this could be my segment within the podcast.
You just need to bring the funny.
See, if we had a camera now, you would have my disinterested and pissed off face in it, and
I think we heard you.
That would be funny.
No.
What, are these not on or?
No, we're on.
Okay, good. We're live?
No, we're not live. I think that's a good wrap.
Okay.
Anyway, again, glad. Will was glad to. I'm Will. We were glad to have you in the Willy Studios, and we hope to have you again.
Thank you.
Just bring the funny next time.
Okay.
There's funny. It's out there. It needs to be brought.
And let's just keep it rolling.
The funny is like a rare bird.
Yeah.
It's more like a pigeon. It's like a rare pigeon.
That's not a rare...
No, I know. That's the thing, is that it's like funny.
It's hidden in plain sight.
It's hidden. Funny things are often in very ordinary situations.
Okay.
What does a bird have to...
I like that.
A bird? What is a bird? What's a bird's life? A bird's life is, it's not a Pixar movie. It is a, we're going to can that. Fuck, let's wrap up
No, come on. That's good. Yeah, so...
a bird's life. What does it do? It wakes up in the morning, has a cup of coffee, goes to find some worms.
All true.
Comes back, has a Vietnamese roll, feeds it little worms. It makes sure none of its children smell like humans. If it does, it fucking just throws it out of the nest, where it plummets to its untimely death, unless it learns to fly and adapts quickly, in which case you have a new race of birds.
And this is a metaphor for the podcast.
This is a metaphor for the podcast.
We are like the bird that is looking for... We're like,
yeah, it's called Bird Notice. It's the new show I'm pitching to HBO.
No, it's like we are like the early bird in this podcasting game. And because...
We're getting the worm.
We're the early bird getting the worm. But one might even say that this rare pigeon is almost like a small nugget of gold. And
the worms will also be our penis, which will be visible during the podcast on X videos.
If we do it that way, yeah. But alternatively, we might...
a bird, it flaps its wings. It wants to fly. This podcast wants to fly. It wants to leave the nest. It wants to fly south for the summer.
So tell your friends about the podcast.
Tell your friends. I have some little birds who are spreading the.
So what's on for the rest of the day, Carls?
We're done.
No, keep going.
No, we're really. You need to have boundaries. The bird has its nest.
We're going to get one more good joke.
It comes back.
What's on for the rest of the day?
It'd be good to have had one good joke today. What's on the rest of the day? I'll probably go back to Office Works and just hang out for a bit. That'll do. Thanks, mate. Bye-bye. This is good. This was the podcast debrief. Catch you next week. Goodbye.